Coming out of my crash, I was so broke I couldn't muster enough money to pay for an airline ticket to Texas to visit a prospective client, even though the fees I'd earned were many times the cost of the fare, so that I didn't make that trip. Still, I gradually added clients, revenue, and a new team. My upswings increased in magnitude, and my downswings were both terrible and educational. Reading Ray Dalio's Principles. Let's get into it because I've got a seminar to continue on with after this. So I am not in my usual spot. Got the beach behind us. It is beautiful. And we're up to chapter 4. Here we go. My Road of Trials, 1983 to 1994. And there's some shoe cleaning going on if you can hear that. Whack, whack, whack. Okay. Coming out of my crash, I was so broke I couldn't muster enough money to pay for an airline ticket to Texas to visit a prospective client, even though the fees I'd earned were many times the cost of the fare, so that I didn't make that trip. Still, I gradually added clients, revenue, and a new team. My upswings increased in magnitude, and my downswings were both terrible and educational. I never thought what I was doing as building or rebuilding a company. I was just getting the things I needed to play my game. Computers were among the most valuable things I acquired because of how they helped me think. Without them, Bridgewater would not have been nearly as successful as it turned out to be. So it is important to remember that when it comes to business, then you want to make sure that you are always looking at how you can keep it going. If it is something viable, if it's something that you enjoy doing, you want to stick at it. So even if you lose all of your employees, if you still feel passionate about it, if you can still see a prospect for it, then you want to keep going. And that's what's so beautiful about what Ray Dalio does here. He says, I still believe in this company. I've lost all of my staff, but I love doing what I did for my clients. I love seeing them get amazing results. So even though things aren't going as well as I want them to, we're going to keep going with this, and I'm going to rebuild it. Now, obviously, if it's something that you don't enjoy, if it's something that doesn't work for you, then you move on to something else. But if you can still feel that spark, and if it's something that is good for you, then you obviously continue with that. Most entrepreneurs are famous for continuing on no matter what, which is really good. The first microcomputers, what would later be known as personal computers, had come on the market during the late 1970s, and I'd been using them as econometricians did. Oh, wow. New word, econometricians. Applying statistics and computing power to economic data to analyze the workings of the economic machine. As I wrote in a December 1981 article, I believe and still believe that theoretically, if there was a computer that could hold all of the world's facts, and if it was perfectly programmed to mathematically express all of the relationships between all of the world's parts, the future could be foretold perfectly. But I was a long way from doing that. Though my early systems provided valuable insights into where the prices would eventually reach equilibrium, they hadn't helped me develop robust trading strategies. They just showed me that a particular bet would eventually pay off. For example, I'd run through my analysis and end up with a view that the price of some commodity should be, say, 75 cents or so. If it was currently 60 cents, I'd know I'd wanted to buy it. But I wouldn't be able to predict that the price would drop to 50 cents before climbing back to 75. And I wouldn't know when to buy and sell. Rarely, but still too often, the system would be dead wrong and I would lose a lot. I'm actually testing systems on foreign exchange at the moment to do exactly this principle. You want to, if you can, in your investing, make sure that you are creating systems that become more and more reliable. So when you start, you have no idea. And you might experiment a little bit. And then you start to find things that actually work. And then you take those things that work and you start implementing those more frequently. And then you might find a better way of doing things. And then you hold on to that and you adapt and you change. And that is how you start becoming really, really successful. He who lives by the crystal ball is destined to eat ground glass, is a saying I quoted a lot in those days. Interesting. So he's saying that you can't necessarily predict because it's going to break and you're going to eat ground glass instead of having a crystal ball because eventually it's going to shatter. Between 1979 and 1982, I had eaten enough glass to realize that what was most important wasn't knowing the future. It was knowing how to react appropriately to the information available at each point in time. In order to do that, I would have to have a vast store of economic and market data to draw on. And as it happened, I did. From very early on, whenever I took a position in the markets, I wrote down the criteria I used to make my decision. Then when I closed out a trade, I reflect on how well these criteria had worked. It occurred to me that if I wrote these criteria into formulas, now more fashionably called algorithms, and then ran historical data through them, I would test how well my rules would have worked in the past. Here's how it worked in practice. I would start out with my institutions, as I always did, intuitions as I always did, but I would express them logically as decision-making criteria and capture them in a systematic way, creating a mental map of what I would do in each particular situation. Then I would run historical data through the systems to see how my decisions would have performed in the past and, depending upon the results, modify the decision rules appropriately. And this is what I am currently doing as well, and I would recommend you do too. I am doing this foreign exchange, and I am writing down, right now I'm paper trading, so I'm just testing and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I am writing down every single trade that I make, what the decision was based on, and whether it was successful or not successful. And it has been invaluable in order to be able to create a system that works more consistently, that works better, because it will show me patterns of what's worked and what hasn't worked. And it allows me to go deeper and deeper, channel more and more into what is actually working. We tested the systems going back as far as we could, typically more than a century, in every country for which we had data, which gave me great perspective on how the economic market machine worked through time and how to bet on it. And with computers nowadays, there is an amazing amount of things that you can do. So if you don't know how to, make sure you find people that can help you with it. Doing this helped educate me and led me to refine my criteria so they were timeless and universal. Once I vetted those relationships, I could run data through the systems as it flowed at us in real time. And the computer could just work just as my brain worked in processing it and making decisions. The result was Bridgewater's original interest rate, stock, currencies, and precious metal systems, which we then combined into one system for managing our portfolio of bets. Our system was like an EKG on the economy's vital sign, the same thing that you used to measure heartbeats and things like that. As they changed, as the vital signs changed, we changed our positions. However, rather than blindly following the computer's recommendations, I would have the computer work in parallel with my own analysis and then compare the two, so that you now have two things to compare, not just only the computer, but you also compare your own. So I found this great thing in order to be able to determine which way a foreign exchange currency is going to go. And then I also test that with my own gut feeling rather than only use what the computer says. When the computer's decision was different from mine, I would examine why. Most of the time it was because I had overlooked something. In those cases, the computer taught me. But sometimes I would think about some new criteria my system would have missed. So I would then teach the computer. We helped each other. It didn't take long before the computer, with its tremendous processing power, was much more effective than me. This was great, because it was like having a chess grandmaster helping me plot my moves, except this player operated according to a set of criteria that I understood and believed were logical. So there was no reason for us to ever fundamentally disagree. The computer was much better than my brain in thinking about many things at once, and it could do it more precisely, more rapidly, and less emotionally. That one's important, because as investors, very often we are so emotional. We see that we are losing money, and then rather than holding on to it, waiting for it to go back up, if we know that that's what it's going to do, we sell in panic and we start acting all irrationally because we allow our emotions. To be a really good investor, you need to be able to check your emotions at the door, leave them there, and then focus on following the systems. And if you have computers that can create some of those systems, even better. And because it had such a great memory, it could do a better job of compounding my knowledge and the knowledge of the people I worked with as Bridgewater grew. So Bridgewater is growing again. Yay. Rather than argue about our conclusions, my partners and I would argue about our different decision-making criteria. Then we resolved our disagreements by testing the criteria objectively. The rapidly expanding power of computers during that era was like a constant stream of gifts from the gods to us. I remember when Radio Shack came out as an inexpensive handheld chess computer. We sent one to each of our clients with the message, a systemized approach from Bridgewater. That little computer chess game could kick my ass on level 2 of its 9 levels. It was fun to put it up against each of my clients so they could see how hard it was to be computerized decision making. Of course, we always had the freedom to override the system, which we did less than 2% of the time, mostly to take money off the table during extraordinary events that weren't programmed, like the World Trade Center going down on 9/11. While the computer was much better than our brains in many ways, it didn't have the imagination, understanding, and logic that we did. That's why our brains working with the computer made such a great partnership. So never just rely on technology. I remember I was driving once with somebody and they told me, don't worry about looking out of the window, look at the computer screen and only drive according to the computer. Now, I never drive this way, and you would probably be insane to do it because there are obstacles that the computer can't see, and the computer can't think logically like a human can. So make sure that, yes, you can use computers and you can use the parts that it's good at. It is good at doing the calculations that humans can't do because there are too many calculations for us to be able to do in such a short period of time. But use your brain and combine it with the computer in order to be able to use the logic of the human and to be able to evaluate things that the computer can't do. When you do that, when you combine the two, then you have an amazing system that is missed by a lot of people, because a lot of people will either do it all on their own and only use themselves, and some people will only use the computer and forget to use humans at all in that process as well. So we're going to leave it there. I need to start going back into the seminar. It's a really amazing seminar, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually crewing today, so I'm not the one who is actually in the seminar, but that is okay. That is also very, very enjoyable. I hope you enjoyed that, just like you always do. Now, if you enjoyed these videos and you have missed part of the book, and if you'd like to be able to catch up on the rest of the book because you are so excited by what you heard today, then you can do that on YouTube. You can find me at the Passive Cash Flow Club. I am looking forward to seeing you there. You can watch the videos, you can see my commentary, you can leave your comments, which would be really amazing. And I spent a whole day on Friday making videos answering your questions, because some of you sent questions to my Instagram. I'll give you that in just a moment. And you are able to then ask your questions, and I have answered some of those questions. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube. That way you'll be notified when I add new content with answers to your questions, which is going to be really, really valuable. Now, if you'd like to join me on Instagram, you can do that at business_team_6_official. I would love to see you there as well. Send me a message. Let me know your questions. I'm looking forward to making more videos answering all of your questions. So that has got me very, very excited. Plus, you'll be able to get the answers to the questions that you have about investing. Now, you can also, if you'd like, because a really, really great way to be able to practice all of these principles and be around like-minded people is to come and play cash flow with us. We have an online version, so no matter where you are in the world, you can come and join us. So I would love to see you there as well. If you're interested, just message me cash flow, and I can get my VA, my virtual assistant, to send you the details for that. So I would love to see you for a game of cash flow. Would love to get your message and your questions on Instagram. And remember that you can always watch all of the replays, not only of this book, but of The Art of Thinking Clearly and Rich Dad Poor Dad, which we've also read, on the YouTube channel, The Passive Cash Flow Club. So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to go to the Bigo and see who actually messaged and say hello to you and follow you. And yes, I always love seeing who has joined. So have a great day. Thank you so much for joining. As always, I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and have a good day. And remember to make the switch to unlock your rich.